Hello, Oliver Kember here. Welcome back and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite projects to date, which is from back in 2012, and this was a one-take Steadicam music video for the incredibly talented Andy Burrows. I was the DP on the project. This was directed by Stephen Parker, fabulous director, and his concept was to do the whole video in one take. So naturally, like the young, eager DP that I was, I leapt at the opportunity because we all love a good one take. I can't put the video in this video embedded, so what I've done is I've left a link to it in the description below. So if you pause the video, click that link, watch it through, and keep in mind that it was all one take as you're watching. Then come back here and I'm going to show you behind the scenes where I follow behind the Steadicam with my 5D, just filming some B-rolls so that, you know, eventually I could share it with you guys. And here we are 6 years later, and I'm really excited to be able to show you how we pulled this off. So please pause the video and come back and I'll talk you through it.
Okay, here we go. Cameras rolling.
So this is take 11 of 15 that we shot that day. This is right at the end of the day. And by this point we were in a really good groove with it all. So I popped out and I followed behind the Steadicam with my 5D, just recording some B-rolls so that eventually I could share it with you guys. So you'll see here that the Steadicam and the video are perfectly synced up. And it was really like a slick kind of choreography at this point where the boys would drop in the props exactly when they were needed, and all of the movements in and out of the frame were just in a really good rhythm. You'll see the light coming in through the window there, and we'd actually boxed that off. We were shooting in the daytime, so it meant blacking out the entire location, and it was a very bright space, so that took a lot of time to do. And I think outside the window there was just like a 300 watt lamp sitting on a ledge, and thankfully the location had that little outside area, so we could basically build a box around a light so that we could have something coming in from the outside for that opening moment. This little pan down here onto the fire when Andy wipes past was one of the moments that we built in, just thinking, look, if it doesn't work out and we actually need to put an edit in, that would be a perfect moment, just in case. And thankfully we never had to do that. But I think if you're doing a one take Steadicam shot and you can build in little things like that, it could be the smart move. And a lot of this was about the magic of having something in a frame and it feeling perfectly smooth and controlled. And of course, just outside of it, there's panic and madness, and everyone's trying to get the objects in on time, and it's like a really hectic sense of energy. So by now, of course, the quartet are back in the room that we started in, and the light levels have been brought up to about 80%, from I think around 40% when Andy's in there at the beginning, just so that it's the same space, but it feels a bit different lighting-wise. There's a little Kino flow under the choir that has popped on, and in the room actually there to the left of the choir, in that big sort of square box, is where the gaffer is sitting, Pete Carrier, who was riding all the levels, and he had like 30 different lighting cues rigged up onto a dimmer board and basically just had to nail it at exactly the right moment. So he was like really in the zone, in sync with the track there. And you can see above the beams are the China lanterns that I used to primarily light this video. And in addition to those, you know, I had a couple of 150s and 300s, I think, just picking out the odd hotspot here or there, just so that it wasn't a complete wash of light, which is what happens if you work with soft light. And so now the quartet are whizzing into their next setup. And it became like a really kind of interesting dance between Stephen and the Steadicam operator. Stephen, the director there, is helping guide John Iles, our Steadicam operator, and all of the rest of the band members, and also the props boys who are bringing things in and out and spinning the globe at the exact right time. It became a kind of intimate dance between them and Andy, and then of course by take 11 I decided to jump in and add myself as an extra sort of element of chaos. And like all good things, we end up back where we started with a slightly different perspective on it.
Camera's cut. Well done, everybody, again. Jeez. Another really good take.
It honestly makes me nervous watching that still, just waiting for something to go wrong. What we're looking at now is the rehearsal the day before we shot, and this is just me walking through the blocking with the C300 in my hand, just sort of doing a loose rehearsal with Andy so that, you know, we all have a sense of how it's going to look. Obviously it's dark, the space is unlit, and it's currently being blacked out by the gaffer Pete Carrier, and the quartet kindly came down just to help us get a sense of how it was all going to work out. We used this recce day the day before, whilst we were all blacking out, just to make sure that we had the camera work really quite polished by the end of the day, so that when John Iles, our amazing Steadicam op, came in the next day, he knew what the plan was and we could make the most use of his time. So by now, of course, the location is darker and kind of tungsten lit, and we are walking it through with Andy once again, looking at lighting a bit more thoroughly. It looks like it's pretty much blacked out by now, which is great. So now we have a neutral base with which to add only the light that we want. And we were going for that intimate nighttime feeling. It didn't feel like it should be set in the daytime. And now we're taking a look at it, and it's overlit and horrible, and the units have just gone up very loosely. And once you've got the lamps in place based on where the bits of performance are, you can then start shaping them and working out what level you want them at what point in the track, and then kind of putting that all into a dimmer desk. And now Stephen, the director, is talking through John Iles, our Steadicam operator, what the shot's going to be, and we're really sort of fine-tuning it by this point, so that hopefully once the camera goes up, we all kind of know what we're doing. And actually that worked out to be true in the end. It only took a few takes to get into the rhythm of it. But we didn't get into the rhythm of it until quite late in the day, just because, you know, final lighting tweaks and all of that stuff took so long. So this is the first pass that John, our Steadicam op, had with Andy. This was in the morning that we were shooting, and it's basically just a loose camera rehearsal with none of the lights on, just so that everyone could reacquaint themselves with what we're doing. This is on the morning of the shoot. And then we went for it. And this was one of the early takes. Well, I think this is take one, and I had the bright idea of putting a China lantern behind the piano to give Andy a sort of soft key, but obviously that didn't work and appeared in the shot. And then we tried it again, and we almost missed the China lantern. It was going to sort of pop out from behind the shot and then duck back in, but it just wasn't working. Eventually we sacked it off. That's an example of, you know, a cue coming in late. We framed for 235 because the ceilings were such that there was no way that we could shoot this and get a wide shot and also be in 16:9. We had to cut it off just above their heads, because otherwise we were going to see all of the lighting in the beams and everything. You know, something else to say is that not all of the takes worked. There was the occasional fluff from either like a prop that didn't get it in on time, or like a bit of blocking that didn't work, or sometimes John would just say, you know, I think we can do this better, and call it earlier rather than later, which is really smart. John Iles, fantastic Steadicam operator and a good friend, was a real trooper on this shoot. Asking someone to do basically 2 hours of solid Steadicam operating at the end of a day, back to back, was a real challenge, but he rose to it and he smashed it. I think he was quite moist by the end of it, but he did a fantastic job. I mean, it's flawless operating. It's amazing how all of this stuff adds up. You know, we had a recce day and a shoot day, and we still only got to actually shooting in the last 2 hours of the shoot day, because there was so much to be done to get the space exactly as we wanted it. There was a lot of stuff in that space to begin with. Our production designer, Aurélie Teilhard, did an amazing job. I'm really sorry, I've obviously pronounced that badly orally, but she did an amazing job dressing the space with what it had and bringing some of her own stuff in so that it sort of felt curated rather than just completely random. There was a lot of stuff in there. It's an amazing location actually, and I will leave a link below for anyone who wants to shoot their own project in there. It's a really beautiful spot. The location was on the 4th floor in an attic, and we had to get a piano in there and up the stairs. Thankfully, the piano that the team found was just a husk. It was a shell of an old piano. So when Andy's sitting there playing at the beginning, there's actually no sound coming out of that piano. The keys don't do anything, much as they still sort of look functional. And we got it upstairs. I say we. Let's take a look. I remember being particularly helpful on getting that piece of equipment into the location.
Hi lads. Is that a mild sweat on your brow? Have you got the time, Stephen?
Head back. Head back.
Just in here would be great, thanks. Woo! So, change of plans, we're doing this on the ground floor.
Thank you. Cool.
If you found this useful, please do feel free to share it with any of your filmmaking friends on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. I always love watching content like this. And equally, please, if you've shot anything in a one-take music video or a Steadicam short film or something on a gimbal or anything that doesn't cut, I think it would be really cool to see what you guys have been up to. So leave a link in the comments below and then we can all check out each other's work. That would be really fantastic. I've got lots more coming, so hit subscribe if you're new. Thanks for tuning in again if you're coming back, and I'll see you very soon.
Guys, that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much, everybody. Unbelievable. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much to Steve. That's cool.